breaking down like an old gray cat in winter, keeping close to the wall.
They're good. It's the first song I ever wrote about one.
Is it? No idea.
Well, sometimes I don't know where this dirty road is taking me. Sometimes I can't even see the reason why. I guess I'll keep a gambling, lots of booze and lots of rambling. It's easier than just waiting around to die. And one time, friends, I had 'em all. I even had a paw. He beat her with a belt once 'cause she cried. She told him to take care of me. She headed down to Tennessee. Oh, it's easier than just waiting around to die. Well, come age and I found a girl in a Tuscaloosa bar. And she cleaned me out and hit her on the sly. I tried to kill the pain. I bought some booze and hopped a train. It seemed easier than just waiting around to die. And a friend said he knew where some easy money was. We robbed a man and brother did we fly. They told her to take care of me. They drug me back to Tennessee. And it's 2 long years of waiting around to die. Oh, but now I'm out of prison. I got me a friend at last. He don't drink or steal or cheat or lie. Well, his name's Codeine. He's the nicest thing I've seen. And together we're gonna wait around. Well, together we're gonna wait around.
Hello, ladies and gents. I know you're thrilled to see us back. You're ecstatic. I know you are, especially all you Antifa insurgents sitting there wriggling, hoping we're going to get super political. Who knows? Maybe. Who knows? I doubt it. We're here to talk about the worst jobs in history and the worst jobs of today. But before we do, I first want to ask the panel a question. What is the most high-paid job you wouldn't do out of disgust? So, for instance, we're about to talk about jobs that people had to do against their will throughout history, right? But in modern times, people go well out of their way.
All right, I have the answer ready.
Wait. People go well out of their way. Go well out of their way to study for jobs that other people wouldn't do for triple the money. Like a brain surgeon, for instance. What modern job would you say no? There's no way I couldn't do that. Oh, sorry, Lou. I got you.
Shall I go first, or does Lou want to go first?
Serving popcorn in the cinema all day. Not happening. Not happening. Not doing it. Looking at all them fucking happy couples coming in and that demanding popcorn. You got
over sewage. Oh, mind you, yeah. I mean, I've done some planning on that before. It's
all day long.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Working in Stratford's, Iceland.
Okay. Yeah, that would be the pits, like Bethnal Green Road, Iceland. Can you imagine that?
Fuck that.
That
you can't pay me enough money.
Do you know what it'd be like? The Truman Show, but in like back in time, because you go into Iceland and they got that cheap lighting, haven't they? That sort of, yeah, it's like a hospital toilet sort of lighting. Al, what job Modern job, brain surgeon.
Yes,
I don't know.
the answer to this would be being a media representative and analyst for Glowho. Not only would I not be able to sleep at night, I would be forthrightly suicidal for trying to destroy slowly my own people and my nation. Greatest and sevenfold be the shame upon media representatives
Yeah,
of
but Al,
Glowho.
this isn't practical because you wouldn't get close to that job because of your views, right?
Sir, I guarantee you that if I feigned ignorant retardation and also feigned to be on their side, I probably could. So my
You're
answer
cheating.
is being an enemy media asset representative and operative.
That's not an answer. Everyone doesn't want to be a leftist operative, right? The
So
point is,
if they
what
want
job-
money, they do. If they want to climb a career ladder, they sure as hell do.
Lou, you understood, didn't you? I'm talking about job. Not leave politics aside. You would like it if there was.
It is a
successful-
job, sir. Being a panelist or whatnot and presenting the news is technically a job,
I've
sir.
got it.
Listen to him.
Don't
The
worry,
point
don't worry,
is,
I've got
if
it.
there was a successful right-wing journo outfit, you'd like to work for them. You'd enjoy that. The point is, you wouldn't hate to be a journalist. What job that's high paid would you not be able to do? Like brain surgeon.
Anything with.
What about the old what's name job? Digging up bodies and stuff like that. You know, when you got to exhume them.
As in a proper police.
No,
coroner.
sir, that would be right interesting to me.
Anal COVID swab technician. I mean, is that a title? That probably is a title at this point.
I think it is for China, sir.
Yeah.
But the question was jobs that I can do but would never want to do, right?
So so irrelevant of politics. If what job out there which is highly paid, no matter how much they paid you, you wouldn't want to do it. I couldn't be a brain surgeon. The reason what farmer?
Maggot farmer. It's a real job.
Yeah, no, of course it is. Yeah, they probably earn quite well.
Fucking stink is
they do.
Unbearable because they've got to eat rotting flesh. So you're just all day dealing with rotting flesh.
When I used to go carp fishing, you get those guys that think they're really clever for putting the maggots in their mouth as well.
You know what I mean?
Just to show off.
Well, apparently they're clean, aren't they? They're actually clean.
So they can have microbacteriums and viruses and shit that are undetectable and unknown to humans. I would not trust the quote-unquote Switzerland Davos party scientists to tell me to eat maggots.
I once saw a guy, true story, I won't name the lake, he pulled a carp out of a lake and bit its head off. Now, lo and behold, a week later, his lips come up in warts. You know, no one felt sorry for him. But, you know, don't eat out of a septic pond, basically, or lake, is the lesson we take from this.
Probably the answer to the original question would be any job where I would be physically exhausted within 2 hours. Okay, any job.
So a postman then?
Yes, postman sounds exhausting. Does it pay well, though? You said it had to pay well.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's wrong. I wouldn't mind postman because I get to enjoy the sights and scenery in the sunlight.
Yeah, I'd do a postman job if I had to. I'd sooner that than working in Iceland, that's for sure.
You and I are humans, Lou. You and I don't see that as hell. That's a perfectly nice job. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, Al doesn't like carrying his own bags, for Christ's sake. He thinks he's genuine.
What about
I'm about to start reading some examples.
How about a call agent? Where you have to knowingly ring people all day that don't want you ringing them.
Nah, matey, I've done that and it was well fun.
I bet you like that. I bet
How can you take enjoyment out of that shit?
I mean, I get to annoy at least 500 people a day and make some money off of it, so it's good fun.
Can you imagine? I bet he was persistent. I bet he never got tired. You can imagine
Yeah,
phone
he
call
just-
after phone call.
Are you listening to me, you fucking buffoon? Listen, I will save you so much money. No, fuck that. Couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
We're going to start now looking at some of the actual jobs of the past, because some of them are quite silly. And some are quite serious, like the thumbnail. The thumbnail here we'll speak about a little bit, because we're going to be making more features of it, which is obviously the children of the Industrial Revolution. And it's not just the children that suffered intensely, it was the adults. And they didn't just suffer via poverty and the obvious things, but they suffered via things such as paternalism and the separation of family units and things like that. So we won't go too into that because that's very political, and this is a more so light-hearted stream. So let's talk about leeches and things like that. So I'm going to go to my list.
Oh, yeah. It was leech collectors, wasn't it?
Leech collectors is the piece, because you had to. All right, let me get my description. But from my memory, you had to walk in the marshes and let them attach themselves to your legs, and that's how a leech collector made their living.
Yeah, it was a real job. That was a real fucking job. Career. Yeah, my old man was a leech collector. Now I am. Yeah. You should go and collect them, because every doctor around Europe.
I would say that.
Yeah.
But it's not that tasking, is it? I mean, compared with, I don't know, bricklaying in the previous centuries, it wouldn't be tasking. So would you rather?
Yeah, but you're going to lose a lot of blood over time if you're collecting more than like 6 of them or something.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because how many days?
Yeah. And I'm not being funny, but infection.
The week you work, you'd end up looking, half full as hell, wouldn't you?
Infection back then was way more likely as well. So you're opening up little wounds all over yourself. But with these leeches, you didn't have antibacterial creams, stuff like that. You get fucking gangrene stuff coming up in that. It's easy.
Shit that you don't see anymore.
Yeah, you didn't hardly ever see that. It's only on fat diabetic people that have got sores and shit. Other than that, it's not really that bad.
When you go in a hospital and there's all the curtains around some guy and he's got something, and that's where he stays, in the corner with the curtains. They used to walk around getting leeches. I mean, apparently it's a predominantly female role, the leech collecting. It suits them, really, doesn't it?
Well, I'm not being funny, yeah.
Yeah,
it does suit them, man.
Suits them.
All the men were out fighting wars, so
yeah, and there are women doing what they do best, So nature taking its course, if ever it did, and they're earning a few pound note out of it. So good on them. Absolutely. Next job.
I would say that the answer to the next job would be to be someone's fall guy patsy without knowing about it. Well, out of all of human history, if you're the guy who's going to get done in and blamed for something that you didn't do or did not deserve, and you're the patsy fall guy who is doing something that you think is fine, but then you get backstabbed and done in, that indeed would be one of the worst that I would like to recommend.
Well, what about, do you know, I forgot what it's called now, but basically in the previous few centuries, there was the entitlement among the monarch that you could not have on the prince, right? So if the prince misbehaved, there would be a whipping boy, what's known as the whipping boy, and he would take the punishment. So
he'd get smacked up for you,
yeah.
So, you what?
Yeah, this is true.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's where the saying comes from. I'm not your fucking whipping boy, right? That's what people say. On job sites and stuff like that. That's an actual saying, and the saying comes from princes, monarchs, anyone barons' kids and stuff like that would have whipping boys. So they'd have a boy in the class there, not to learn, but to every time this cunt fucked up, you would take his lashings. So
it's basically what
it was nice if the guy actually liked you, but if he didn't like you, or you
now it makes perfect sense, Bins, and I get it entirely.
It's true. It's a fact.
Indeed, though, that would be quite a harsh occupation. But would it continue on through adult years or what?
It depends on how naughty the prince was, I suppose. So imagine you're French. You've got this arrogant French prince walking about, mouthing off to everyone. You're thinking in your head, shut your mouth. You're going to get me a hiding.
That is a fucking shitty job, that.
Yeah, innit?
Whipping boy. Oh, fuck up. Right, you're going to work today. All right, what's my job? I've got a new job. Yeah, got this great job for you. You're going to be working for the prince. What? No, really?
'Cause that's how it works.
He's a celebrity now. Right, you know what I mean? Yeah. Well, every time he fucks up and don't get maths right, you've got to take his lickings. Oh, so they're just having me around to kick the fuck out of me. Yeah. They're going to kick the fuck out of you every time he's a prick.
And the thing about getting beaten up is, unless you're fighting back, you don't get any harder for this. You just get beaten up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Unless you're sort of learning how to fight, literally.
What a shit job!
Yeah,
what a shit job! That's it. You got. I'm here to get beaten. You're just sitting there all day, just like, oh, I didn't do it. No, it's him. We've been through this.
I know.
2 + 2 equals. Little Prince is sitting there. 6.
And you're not learning nothing. I mean, it goes without saying, because you know the supreme entitlement, which was inherited to monarchs, basically, which was godliness. So a monarch was actually had a connection to God, like that of the Pope, and therefore striking them was like offending
True
God.
story.
And so how can you ever this? I mean, don't get it wrong. History would tell you that the monarchs were all completely evil, and the revolutions had to happen across France and so on. Not completely true.
No,
but at the same time, how do you teach someone right and wrong when they've got a whipping boy? It's not,
Yeah, but most of the time it worked because they did like most, according to history anyway, from what I looked up of it, most of the princes and stuff like that, they're young kids. So they made mates with these whipping boys. They actually liked them. So a lot of the time, they didn't get the lickings because they'd be like, "I'm not going to fuck up, not fuck around, because otherwise he gets beaten."
Lou, it's not the same. If that was you,
if you're not compassionate, then
you wouldn't care.
Your job as a whipping boy is terrible. If you've got an uncompassionate guy, but most of the time they are human, believe it or not.
Lou, you'd be awful, mate. You would be awful. You'd befriend the whipping boy and watch him get battered.
If it was you, yeah. If you were my whipping boy, do you know how bad your job would be?
Well, who do you think takes the rap for all this fucking stuff you lot do anyway? All right, now we're here. Now we're bringing it up, right? You want to bring it up, right? Anyway, moving swiftly on. Next job.
It's hilarious.
I have a recommendation for the next job, such that you don't go through your list, sir. Right? Okay. So I want you to imagine that this is going to be a good one, right? Okay. So imagine yourself being a Chinese farmer, being told to go work on the steel, and then being told that you. Pardon, I accidentally muted myself. Being told that you need to work on the steel instead of the rice fields, and then being told that you need to kill all of the chirping canaries, right?
What you've done now is
dying from starvation and having steel in your lungs is
right.
what I am going to recommend.
Be a Chinese farmer. Give it to him.
Specifically under Mao.
Back then. Under Mao would have been really bad. That would have been really bad. Yeah,
if that's the topic.
Steel in the lungs and famine, by the way, is not a good way to go. Not just famine and dying from your fucking body shriveling up and atrophying, right? But also steel molecules in your lungs and burning into your skin. Not decent steel even, multi-metal steel, right?
More detail, Al. More detail, please.
Anyway, very bad stuff. I would not like to be a Chinese farmer under Mao's famine and Great Leap Forward. That is what I recommend. Discuss.
Yeah, fucking right.
Well, the thing about it is you can't be subjective because you have to be individual. So which job in particular was horrific? We know about the communist regime. We could go on about that all day, but the point of this stream is to focus in on which aspect of the farming was horrific which was the most life-consuming, which took up people's lives. So I'm going to
Yes,
look at
being told by the authorities, kill all of the animals, stop farming, you're no longer a farmer, you're a quote-unquote steel production asset and officer. In your barn, you're going to now make steel until you die, otherwise we are going to kill you. That is, quote, Chinese farmer, right?
Well,
So
you
it's
brought up
not
a good
exactly
point.
Chinese farmer, it's what happened around the title of Chinese farmer at the time, right?
Which just so happens to involve Maoist communism and Bolshevism. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
moving
Shall we
swiftly on.
continue with the next one? It's also around the similar thing. It's being a landlord at the time.
And you think that's one of the worst jobs, yeah?
Yes, because they strung them up and killed them and executed them one after another
Yeah,
without hesitation, and it was not a fun
suppose.
time.
But that's no longer
Landlord
the
in Mao's
job.
China, by the way. Not normal landlord. Landlord is Mao's China,
You're
specifically.
cheating.
All right,
That's
moving
not
on.
the job. You keep right.
Yes, it is the job, sir. Your job, if you're a landlord in Mao's China, is to die.
Right,
Okay.
but what's your job if you're a landlord here?
Well,
Landlord
landlord is not
make money
defined.
and a legacy. But there's a difference between Chinese landlord under Mao and
Right, when-
English Chinese.
Listen, when you apply for, or not apply, when you become a landlord, does it say on the landlord's website, at some point in our life, we're going to die under a Maoist regime? Or is a landlord, right? Okay, so we're talking about the jobs. So that's what we're going to do. So
The worst jobs in history.
Yes, Al. Now you're starting to understand the name on the stream we've been talking about for.
How about this one then? I've got one for you.
I've got. Go on.
How about having to dig for asbestos back in the 1800s? That's
Dig
true. That's a real
forward as
job.
well, yeah.
That was a real job. That was a real job. And asbestos miners. So these people were digging up asbestos, right, on these mines, and they were given warnings into the late 1800s, right? These people that owned it, these CEOs, whatever they are, of asbestos, they were told that this shit was dangerous by doctors and stuff like that, and paid to have it covered up, and just let the people work anyway. And people were dropping dead like you wouldn't fucking believe. And then in the factories as well, the women that were having to work on this asbestos and like sort of mold it together and shit like that, they all fucking getting all these fucking illnesses, drowning, you know what I mean? Because their lungs are just filled with asbestos. And these people were just covering it up. Just covering it up.
That's going to lead me on to something that Kermit just brought in, which is something similar that the match workers got, which was phosphorus jaw or phossy jaw, which was due to phosphorus exposure. And this would basically disintegrate your jawline and your teeth. And the condition...
That's for the matches, yeah?
You know, the one in the East End, I've actually made something on this, and I'm putting it together. It's going to come out. I went over to the factory by the Bow Flyover, you know, the great big red one. You'd know it if when you see it. It's on the dual carriageway. You'll know it.
The same thing, that phosphorus jaw you're talking about and all that. The same thing happened to them ladies in the 1910s, 1920s. Were working in some factory in America, and this big thing was glow in the dark stuff. That's when they first discovered this.
They were throwing up the glow in the dark stuff in the East End as well. The stuff
yeah. It's the same thing, and it would get into them because they were licking their fingers and all stuff like that. It'd get into their fucking bodies and then start rotting their jaws and stuff like that because it had this. It made your body think it was calcium, so your body would put it into your bones. And this radiation, it never goes. So it'd get into their fucking jaws and their teeth and stuff like that. And then it would rot away and eventually kill them. And the fucking bastard CEOs of this fucking place actually got away with it because they offered these women that were working in these factories, they offered them payouts like pensions for life and free healthcare. And they only lived another 2 years. So... These cunts settled out of court. the women were dying in like the next couple of years. So he lasted another 2 years after 5 or 10 years of fighting in the courts. they settled on, look, we'll pay for your healthcare. You'll never have to pay for that again, and we'll give you payouts every month. Like you'll get a month's wages every month, no question. So
Yeah, for how long?
hardly got fuck all in the end, yeah, because they
Well, the
lived another
thing that
2 years.
we covered that we're putting together, it basically covers that. So they were taxed on anything, having a dirty workstation. They would never take their full wages home.
Yeah.
And they were suffering from phosphorus jaw, all of the other elements which would be horrific in that century. They were fined as well for having dirty feet, despite not being able to afford shoes. And so the primary importance of this particular factory, which is in the East End, in Bow, is it was owned by Quakers. Now, the Quakers, if you look at
the cereal,
the religion.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. So if you was to look at Quakerism, which my video will depict, it's actually completely identical to anarchism. It's anti-fascism, its color system, Quaker anti-fascism, etc. And also, if you were to look at Christian anarchism is humongous. It's got hundreds of its own symbols. These are massive things. Now, I'll get to the point. So these Quakers run this factory. They're starving the factory worker. And then anarchists come along out of nowhere, and suddenly they form the riots against the factory owner. Now, the anarchists have got the same flag, same symbols as the factory owner. So they then head the riots. The factory owner offers some meek handout, which is false. And then all of a sudden, the bosses of the riot suddenly become union reps. So it was all basically the factory owners making the people suffer, the local people suffer, in effort to form unions. So another example.
The idea of controlling the opposition, as Mr. Vladimir Ilyich Lenin said, is the height and peak of political subterfuge. Yes, that's what paternalism is to an extent, owning and controlling the opposition.
Actually reported on this, saying that the police were brutal to the protesters, blah blah blah. But the Manchester Guardian, one of its founders, was actually one of the Greg's family, who ran one of the largest mills and factories, who was a huge capitalist, massive capitalist.
Yes, family. If you follow the money, you will always find redacted.
It's just, that's the way it is. So it was always a falsehood. So basically, the working class, actual working class, poor people of East End that would work in these factories, you'd have these factory owners which were working against their interests. And then you'd have these false representatives that come along and would say to you, we're going to arrange a march. You're being treated badly. And this, by the name, was the name of Annie Besant. There's still a plaque on the factory. So if this factory hated Annie Besant so much, the whole thing is a complete ridiculous scam. It's a bit like me owning a factory out. And, to repeat the exact same thing, I am forcing my factory workers into a point where they have to protest outside my gates. But I can't have them protesting individually. I go to one of my people in similar clubs that I talk to outside of work, and I say to them, why don't you organize my protesters, right? They say, yes. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, everything goes swimmingly. There's no need for anything to get damaged or anything like that. And then everything looks like it was hunky-dory. But it's all controlled. It's all controlled, is the point. Anyway.
Anyone who says that the Victorian era communist and socialist revolutions were not owned by redacted is a low-income fool. Yes, sir. We will move swiftly onwards before my acute awareness gets us all killed.
Shut up.
Whose turn is it now? Whose turn is it now?
Have you got a job?
Yeah.
Coming in.
The groom of the stool.
Oh, I know this one. I know
What's
this
that?
one. He basically, you follow the king about,
you there?
and every time
You cut out momentarily and you follow.
You're cutting out, you're cutting out, Vin.
You follow the king about, and every time he takes a stool, you take it away from him, basically.
Yeah, and you wipe his ass as well.
I think that's unnecessary. That one. I don't think that's necessary because if you can't strike a prince, why can you wipe a king's ass?
Yeah.
Do you understand? You're not meant to touch the monarch. So
I really don't. Yeah. You fat. Imagine how fat. You saw how fat Henry VIII got, right? Now imagine like to earn your wage every week. You've got to, take his shit away and wipe his fucking fat ass as well.
Well, imagine. But I hope that Queen Victoria didn't have one. That would be rank.
It might have been gone by then.
Yeah, I hope so. I really hope so.
It might have been. You know what I mean? So
I'd rather have been picking up black death bodies.
That's my one there. The groom of the stool. There you go.
Kermit just said, I would never let anyone wipe my ass. I remember that, Kermit, one day. If you ever have a car accident or something like that. I remember that.
Vin, you would. I know you would. I know you would. If someone offered you a little gold sting to walk around behind you wiping your fucking
You're talking to the wrong guy. Alex fully would. Alex fully would.
Without question, everyone knew Alex would. But I know you, and I know you.
What is up with these accusations of scatophilia, sir? Is this projection or whatnot?
I've made a right mess back there. Now hurry up.
I'd have him carry.
Hurry up!
You know what I'd have him do, Lou?
So,
I'd have him hold like loads of Hugo
Mozart-
Boss aftershaves.
What was the name of the job again? Bar stool something.
It's something of the stool. It's patron of the stool.
You
or
wouldn't
something.
even have the fucking common decency to spread your ass cheeks a little bit. So that
I'll have you know I would, right? Jokes aside, right?
You'd squash them together on purpose.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. My stall boy would have a clean slate. All right.
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Right, it's my job now. Okay.
Go on in.
Okay, so before we go to some of the more dangerous ones, this one must have been the pits. Medieval or ancient runners, as in messengers. So I'm going to read this description.
What? Don't shoot the messenger, guys.
If you want a message to run, the ancient Greeks used a person to deliver a message during the Battle of Marathon. The Greeks had defeated the Persian army, but they were worried about the Persians, who retreated to the sea, who would head to Athens to launch a new attack. The Greek army needed to send a message to Athens to tell them that Greece had won the battle, but to warn them that Persia may try and attack again. A runner named Phidipphes, Alex would read that better with his Greek linguistics, was given the job to run 26 miles, 40 kilometers to Athens to give the news. Right, so we get the message there, but the point was, back in the day, being a messenger was the pits.
Yeah.
On horseback or on foot.
Yeah.
That would, especially if you had something important on you.
Yeah. Not only that, imagine being the messenger that's got to go to the enemy to deliver messages. Because that's what they say. Look, don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, that's a pretty
that's where
bad
that saying
one.
comes from. It's like they'd send one of their men to go to talk to the enemy to send a message. Look, we've got 15,000 blokes back there. They're ready for it. They're up for it. You just want to go tomorrow at 6. So you'd have to hope that they didn't kill you. I mean, it was bad etiquette to kill the messenger.
Yeah, but who cares at that point?
Yeah, well, like what you saw in 300, where he kicks the geezer into the fucking hole. Yeah, those were real guys. I forgot they've got a proper name. They do actually have a proper name. I can't think of it now. Like when you used to play medieval Total War and shit like that, you'd have one to send out. You can get like an assassin, or you'd get like
scouts or something.
No, not a scout. A scout is someone that would spy on the enemy. But this guy would
Yeah,
go
but
there
I mean
as
scout
an ambassador
messenger,
or something like that, like an ambassador or something like that.
diplomat, maybe.
Not like a negotiator.
Something like that. Someone in the comments fact check me and like find out what the fuck I'm talking about. But there was a real job.
The word is envoy or emissary, I think, is
Would
what
you
you're looking
do
for.
it?
Not diplomat
Might be
or
that.
ambassador, envoy or emissary, envoy dash messenger or emissary dash messenger, I think.
How would you
Yeah.
carry yourself? Would you bowl in there and hope that you had an
Yeah,
authority?
I think Alex is right. It was a king's emissary. I think it was, and you'd have to go there and sort of say, look, you know, like I said, he's up for it. You up for it? All right, tomorrow at 6. You know, or look, he wants to have a bargain with you now. Instead of all these people dying, how about we give you 500 lumps of gold and you leave this country? Like the worst people in history to deal with as an emissary was the Mongols or the Vikings, because they would kill you and split you in half and shit like that. You know, they'd do the what was the Vikings torture method?
Blood eagle.
Yeah, that's it. The blood eagle. It cut you in half and pull your rib cages out so that you look like a bird while you're alive.
If you had to be a messenger,
Look, I can. You know what they're gonna do. You know, get in there, or I'll do it to you. No, come on, bro. You know, it's fucking Igor, the fucking Bluetooth guy. Nah, fuck that. Nah, cut me head off now. Bollocks.
So you've got to go do it, right? You've got to pick an angle. You've got two options. Do you go in there, modest, polite, looking at the floor and making little eye contact, or do you walk in with your head held high, bowling as if you know something they don't? Which of the two? Because whichever one might save your life. So you've got to walk in this tent now. There's an emperor sitting there. He's got two henchmen stood there with swords and some Game of Thrones looking outfit on, right? And you've got to now negotiate. And your guy said to you, hang on, Luke. Your guy said to you,
I walk in there and punch.
Hang on. I've not told you the message yet. I've not told you the message yet, right? So you've got to walk in and say that your guy has said, "Go fuck yourself." So it's not your fault. You've not said this.
I know what a Viking would have done. He'd have walked in there with the king's son's head or something and said, "Here, there's your fucking message."
Right. Personally, I
know that shit did happen. And I know for a fact, right? I've got a right funny story, right? But I'll tell it after we get over this bit. Otherwise, we're changing subject too quickly. But I think I'd have to front it and just say, right, he said this. I mean, if you were a Viking and brought up that way anyway, you had no fear of death anyway. You knew you were going to Valhalla.
Look, leave Vikings aside. You're a Roman. You're a Greek. You've got to go into a tent, right? And you've got an army on your side, and your main man has said to you, "Tell him to fuck himself," right? And it's not your fault. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you do it? Do you go in there as if you know something they don't, with your head held high, hoping that you'll poker face them, or do you?
I'm a Roman,
Greek, whatever. You're an Englishman walking into a.
Not a Roman. It's like, hey, he told you to pay the money, John.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fuck, man. It depends who the enemy was, isn't it?
That's it, isn't it?
You just got to know, if they are just total savages, there's no way I'm going there in the first place. Like, if they're just like these, Mongol mobs, Mongol warriors or whatever, I ain't going there. No, fuck off, Caesar.
It might actually be better to live off in exile than to go visit the Mongols or the Vikings as a messenger. Actually, he's right. The option here is a third option of don't front it at all and become a hermit or exile.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bad job. It's a bad gig. No doubt about it. Being a fucking messenger, and you got to walk right into the mouth of the beast and say,
not just that, Lou. When you get to your guy,
he's got
to give you a pie.
You know what he's like.
So hang on. You've now got the
Clamp it up.
message, yeah?
Clamp it up, bro. Oh, you know what he's like. He's a rascal. He's said, shove it up your ass.
What
Well,
could
if
you
you're
do?
going to go there, if he's actually giving you a decent option, look, we're going to offer you gold. All right. Look, you can have some gold. Here it is. Or we're fighting you tomorrow. You know, tomorrow we rise.
Right, Lou, stop. I got one. Alex, right? I'm going to put
Yes.
you in a scenario. Okay. Next job. Hostage negotiator. You ready for your scenario?
Go on.
Right. Off the top of my head, we've got a family in a house. There's a father. He's lost his nut. He's gone completely crazy. He's holding the family hostage. What do you do? Go.
Send in the snipers.
Number one, call the sniper squad. Number two, check the
Ruthless.
guy's background. Number three, get him on the phone with me as soon as possible. Number four, check out what weapon or whatnot he has. Number five, check out any relatives or neighbors that know any emotional weaknesses or frailties that the guy may have so that we don't fall into them. And make sure that you have the best sniper squad on the block for either a headshot or a leg shot or something along those lines. Call him and try to negotiate, and then if that doesn't work, send in the squaddies. Isn't that the usual protocol?
Pretty much.
Fair Maiden brings up a strong point that speaking to Alex would send any lunatic clearly over the edge. So it is a stupid question when I think about it. That is the last person in the world you'd need. But
negotiate, I'd need I'd need as much information on the background of the person, the perpetrator, as possible. Okay, that's first thing. I'd need as much as I could. Then I'd try to get on his level. You know, start talking about sports or something like that. To make him feel that I was someone he could relate to. Because if they can't relate to you, your fucking job's fucked anyway. You're not going to get it. Then I'd start trying to appeal to his humanity. Look, these are your kids, mate. These are your wife and kids. If you're going to lose them, whatever else, that's fine. We can deal with that. We have legal systems in place, and I'd reassure him that way. Then I'd try, talking him out of doing whatever he's doing and sort of take it from there, see how he acts, but have the snipers in place in the first place, look, in case they're going to have to take him out. Flashbang, something like that, I don't know. I'll try and get the kids out first. Look, you've got your wife. We can't come in there. We can't do anything. Just let your kids go. Just let your kids go, mate. Just let them walk out of it, okay? Keep the wife. So, we're not going to storm you. We can't. While you have a hostage, just let the kiddies go. Just try and get them out of danger as quickly as possible. Probably. I don't know. I'm not a hostage.
I mean, that is what you want to do. What the first point of call always, as far as well with what I've been looking at, is to get them on the phone immediately. Before anything, you make contact. If they don't have a phone, you throw one through the window. That's it. Straight away. If they don't have one, you make contact because they always need contact because they want something, even if it's their own safety. The other is to, as you said, to make a connection with the person, whether you have a background or not.
Did I get that?
Yeah. But this is what I remember from just studying it ages ago, or not, looking into it. And then what you want to do is, if it looks like it's a desperate scenario, last case, you try and walk them towards a window. You try and talk them into a sense.
Look at here. I'm standing here. I've got my badge. I'm a police officer.
That's what I mean. You think of a different way in a different scenario to get them just to go, look, I'm harmed. No one's going to hurt you. Look, here I am. And in that split second is when it happens. And you have to make that decision whilst you're talking to him. Can I save this guy, or is he too far gone? So as the negotiator, you're in that moment there. It could be 60 seconds or 2 hours or 12 hours.
However long it is, yeah. However long it
Um,
takes with hostage negotiations.
It's up to you to
Yeah.
decipher whether this guy's mental health can be saved. Whether it, you know, and sometimes it's up to the negotiator. It really is the negotiator.
One of the founding, well, I don't know if you call them members or whatever. One of the founding guys of the FBI, you know, the criminal profiling stuff, so serial killer profiling, stuff like that. One of those, his first job was a hostage negotiator. That was what he was before he was, before he sort of came up with the FBI profiling stuff to profile serial killers and stuff like that. What type
Dangerous
of killers?
job.
Yeah, he see a few people blow their own brains out, stuff like that. Failed a few times. It's the worst feeling
It's
in the
not
world.
like a normal copper, Lou, because these people are only dealing with people on the edge, that they're facing life in prison or something. They will shoot, and that's the hostage negotiator is a very dangerous job.
Horrible, isn't it? If you fail.
Yeah, well, even win or lose, it's not a nice case. The guy's still going to get locked up, or whatever the situation, or he might have hurt someone. It's not a good job, It's
Either way, the stakes are very high, regardless of the outcome. So you have to maintain a position of I'm going to do the utmost best that I can, and then sleep at night as best I can, because otherwise it'll devour you from the inside. Because it's a fairly soul blackening occupation. I have the next, what's it called? Worst job in history to carry out when ready.
Coming out.
All right. So you remember in the first season of Game of Thrones when the king was sleeping around with loads of women and there were loads of bastard children, right? The mercenary that kills off bastard children would demand such a level of inhumanity that I would designate it a, quote, bad job throughout history, because you would have to be one of the worst psychopaths on the planet to carry out something like that. Not because it would be necessarily a difficult job, but because it would require such a degree of heightened psychopathy and emotional, empathy, restriction and absence. That's why it would be designated bad. So the mercenary who kills the bastard children is what I propose for the next one.
That's a fuck job, man.
So, for instance,
killing a child anyway, let alone just because some fucking prick wanted it dead.
Well, the problem is here, Lou, I mean, if there is a line and it's a dog-eat-dog world before the time of Parliament, the only thing that could actually threaten you would be the idea of dukes and rich people backing someone else which had a bloodline behind God. And the worst case scenario is that person being alive. So, I mean, I wouldn't agree with it, but back in the day, it's not like politics. They got rid of people. Like, that's it. I mean, if there was a
parcel of living back then, part and parcel of it all. Death was pretty common. But,
by the way, this was popular also in the Middle East as well as the West. Killings of monarchy in Byzantium, in the Ottoman Empire, in Western Europe, etc. It is a job that is a lot more popular than you may initially believe. Byzantium and Constantinople, was the most prolific for this, apparently.
I've just seen a job advert, which is absolutely ridiculous. Wanted someone to grind or chew hay for horse with bad teeth. Contact James Budd.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I hope that. Yeah.
Okay. I hope that's not a real job. I've got another one, please. A resurrectionist.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Get it?
What's that?
All right. I tell you, this was a real job, right? Also known as a body snatcher.
Did no one get my Christ's sake?
Oh, yes.
That was wasted on you.
The job involved tunneling into a grave from a distance, trying not to imagine, the maggots and all that shit, right? Then dragging a freshly dead body out using a rope. But it wasn't a shit paid job. It was pretty good, actually. You could, pull out a set of teeth, you could earn £1. So that's the same as like 50 quid a day today from when this was going on. So it's a pretty good paid job, but You'd have to just pull out corpses and then
From where?
from graves. From graves, you'd have to dig a hole.
Oh.
You couldn't dig directly above the grave because you'd be seen. So you'd have to do it from a distance, tunnel in. You'd probably have a series of tunnels already. Go in there, dig in, make it. Get in the coffin from the side, yank the body out, and then chuck it on a wagon. Take it down to a place where you could start extracting teeth, taking any jewelry that was on the cunt, and there was some famous guys as well, well known for doing this, and they came up with a brilliant idea of, rather than digging up bodies, why don't we make our own bodies? So they'd get people in their hotels and kill them in the night as they were sleeping. And one of the guys was called something Burke, and this practice got called Burking. So basically, one guy would hold your arms, the other guy would sit on your chest, strangle you, and then they'd take you down, strip the skin off you, get rid of your organs, all that stuff, and then take your fresh skeleton down to the university and put this in. Put the body in for however many quids the university would pay. And they only got caught one day because someone grasped them up and said, I saw that Annie who died. She went in that hotel over there. And that's when they caught the two fellas. And supposedly the guy that was running this was in Scotland, by the way. Supposedly the guy that was running this university had no idea they were killing fresh bodies and bringing in fresh skeletons, to use for anatomy and whatnot. He got away with it. The other two, one of them got hung, and the other one, because he rolled over on his mate, he got like a prison sentence. Well, it's a real job.
You've got to earn a living, haven't you? That's the thing. You've got to earn an honest living somehow.
Burking. So he'd fucking
Charming. Absolutely charming.
call it that, you know what I mean? Like, there's no one else in the world called Burke. Fucking call it, Why name it after? Why name it after him? Why don't you just call it something else? Fucking.
Well, my family had to be good at something. So
that's what stuck that one in my head, I think.
Yeah,
it's like
I have the next one.
No,
It's
you
a short
don't.
one.
Look at
Being
the
the
screen.
professional sacrifice victim, right?
Hang on.
You live until
We'll
the
come back
ripe
to this
age
now.
of XYZ among the Aztecs, right? You're the high priest, you're pampered, everything is hunky-dory dandy. And then at a specific time, usually within groups of many, many people, you would all get blood sacrificed. That would be a bad occupation. They'll feed you, they'll clothe you, they'll all the good shit, right? Then you get sacrificed at the end because you're plump and nice, and the gods will be pleased. That job would be terrible.
Yeah, treat you like absolute royalty, and then just off you when they were ready.
Meanwhile, everyone else in the population is starving because there's famines and diseases and shit. But you're treated
It
like
was usually the
king,
people
but
that
you get
won
killed at the
sports,
end.
wasn't it? There was some sort of sports games before this, before you'd be chosen as the high priest or whatever it was. You'd
Yes,
have
and
to
it was a
win,
glory
I know
to
the
be
one,
able
yeah.
to
kicking a
get
head
yourself
around, wasn't
killed.
yeah.
It was like a ridiculous basketball of death. Is that the one you're
Yeah.
referring to?
I
Yeah.
think it was,
Yeah.
or he's
Yeah.
kicking around someone's liver or something like that, and like trying to score the goal. And then if you won, you'd be the next person to be treated like royalty for a while until you were ready.
Yeah, but Lou,
And
if
then
you lost, you got
sacrifice you.
killed. That's the way they actually played pointless
There was
games,
no
like a
win.
Sunday league
Yeah.
to the death. I mean, what's that in?
I mean, there was never a dull moment, was there? It was high drama the whole time.
Oh, definitely.
What's this one? This company will pay you 2.7 million a year to sniff armpits and feet for research. Brilliant job. I'd do that.
Well, you'd have to sniff about maybe 60 armpits a day, and you are a deodorant or antiperspirant tester.
2.7 million a year. Sweet.
I think there's some lies going on here.
No, you probably got to have a really good palate. Not anyone can do it, Vin.
A top sniffer, you mean? A proper
not
sniffer.
There are
Not a fake one, not a
schools.
plastic sniffer, a proper sniffer.
You know, to be one of these guys that taste this sort of stuff, right? To be one of these guys, you have to have an extraordinary palate, and they've got a French word for it, which I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's someone that tastes wines or tastes rums, whiskies, whatever it is, a whiskey taster, whatever it is, alcohol taster, and you have to pass this incredibly hard test, like guessing all the flavor notes and things like that of thousands and thousands of wines. You have to work at this for years before you can go for the test. And then it's like a brilliant job. All you do is you go around to these wineries, to these distilleries, whatever it is, and you taste the stuff and become like a connoisseur as such. So that's basically that job, but a more disgusting version.
They spit it out, don't they? When you see them at these wine,
yeah, the whole point is the
exhibitions and what have you. They spit it out.
Yeah, it's not for, you're not doing it to get drunk. There's drinking, then there's getting drunk. And I
say that, Lou, right? You know the Excel Centre. When I was young, I was working as like a scanner on the door and security-ish sort of thing. You know, checking all of there was an expensive wine exhibition going on there, and I was working, checking people that came in. And the morning, everyone was fine. You know, on the way out, they were pissed. One woman come up and just stuck her tongue all over me. She was an executive, high-paid woman. And she was completely.
I bet they had a drink afterwards, a proper drink afterwards. Of course, you got some.
Mate, they were coming out of the wine exhibition rat-arsed.
Well, some of it does get in through under your tongue. See,
they were drinking it. They
under your
tongue. It out.
It's very absorbent. So, I mean, there's probably the ones that do drink it. Fuck it, we're gonna get drunk. Bollocks.
Right.
I mean, if it's at the Excel, it's probably not that professional, is it? You know what I mean? It's probably a bit like bit of a laugh. This is a convention today, not really a proper what's name. But yeah, this company will pay you many jobs, pay well. From being a doctor to a lawyer, the list is endless. Job note with the smartest of the smartest. Blah, 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 blah. All right. I mean, if the person fucking stinks, that's a bad job, isn't it?
Well, I think most people. I mean, imagine how many. If you're doing 60 odd a day, you're going to get a lot of people from a lot of walks of life. It's not a job that I do personally. My next job.
Jesus Christ! Next one doesn't look very pleasant.
Well, we've got to start really talking about the worst jobs in history because we haven't been, right? So, first of all, let's start with a gong farmer, also a gong firmer, was a term entered use in Tudor England to describe someone who dug out and removed human excrement from privies and cesspits. The word gong was used for both privy and its contents. So we think that being a plumber today might have been unpleasant.
It is.
But a gong farmer would have had a very unpleasant job. And this is someone working. So however bad your job is.
Just know there was gong farms.
Well, look at this guy out. Lou, you might want to come back and have a look at this. Because this is... Oh, my good God. Right, what is he even doing that for? What is he achieving out of that? Is he just showing us that he's willing to do it, or what?
Yeah. I mean, he's probably paid very well, and to do these jobs, you get stupid amounts of holidays a year. To do that, do you know he's off like half of the year on holiday?
I should hope so, mate.
And paid. Yeah. For real.
Oh, what is he doing? What is he even doing?
What country is this, though? I know over here, to work in sewage, you get like ridiculous amounts of like holiday. It's like on for a month, off for a month, on for a month, off for a month.
I think that, I mean, it's going to be tough to beat that. I'm turning that off.
What about child chimney sweeps? Is that worse than that? Risk wise,
we're going to get.
I mean,
to that,
he's wearing all
up.
the protective gear, isn't he?
Yes, but imagine throughout history where you don't have that protective gear, it would be terrible bad.
Oh, Jesus. Well, what about the guys?
No, imagine this though, without the protective gear, that would be the
everyone
like
in
the
that
nightmare.
town. That's their shit.
And he still smells it. There's no way he's
shit.
not smelling that. There's no way in a million years.
He'll still smell that. Yeah, he'll definitely still smell that. Yeah.
On a similar line to this, though, I would recommend Antarctic expedition, either to save someone or to do exploratory missions.
You know,
he throws up in his mask, right? So the smell.
Taking that stuff off, he still gets that all over himself.
If he throws up in his mask, that'll be absolutely revolting.
He's sticking his face in it now.
What am I saying? He's in a world of shit.
Imagine a Halloween treat there. You know, bobbing for apples in that.
I'll tell you what. Imagine he got out, run down the road, started cuddling people. If he got out of there and started coming at you, you'd be livid, wouldn't you?
Why are they filming him? Just trying to embarrass him.
Oh, what is he doing?
That's your living, son. No! Why is he sticking his head in it? I'll tell you what. Perfect place to get rid of a body.
What is he doing?
Perfect place to get rid of a body. You chuck one in there, mate.
Why?
No one's bothering getting that out. No, we don't know where they went.
Imagine that's how you died.
Oh, they did. They did in the Thames back in the early 1800s. There was a boat that sunk, and this boat went over because another boat crashed into it, and loads of people drowned in shit because the Thames was full of it, like full of shit. Thames was like that. Loads of people died in shit. I forgot what the name of the fucking boat was now. I did bring it up on a podcast once.
Well, I was going to say, do you know another job which is they don't have to work much, but when they do, it's horrific. The people that clean up bodies on train tracks.
Well, any of that job itself, cleaning up crime scenes, you know, bodies and stuff like that. It's well paid, but it's fucking brutal. I remember watching the about the South African white farmers and stuff like that. They got one of the women who was a crime scene cleaner to talk about the white farmers and stuff like that, the things they'd seen. And this woman was finding it so hard to talk about it. She kept breaking down. The shit she'd seen. It's fucking horrible. So can you imagine having to do that every day for like murder scenes and stuff like that, and especially when you come across kids and stuff? That's a fucking brutal job, having to clean that up. Or even being the homicide detective, having to go and look at it and figure out what's happened here.
Now I'm going to go get the next one because this is a real job. I don't want anyone to think I'm making anything up, so I'm going to go get a video so that we can all watch it together. There is such a job as an animal semen collector. So
you what, sir?
You heard me.
Wank off animals.
Basically, your job is to stimulate animals until they give you the necessary goods that you've come for.
I don't want to watch this. It's like fucking 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, mate.
Well, it's on YouTube. All right. So I'm not even going to play it. It's just evidence that, look, it's a real thing. So this young lady here, her job, right, is to, I think we can just move on from here, can't we? We all get it, don't we? What she's doing.
Horse dick.
Sir, I believe you have already shown enough such that the algorithms decide that we are abyss-ridden.
Not MPEG.
Well, I bet you she's a handful. That's all I'm going to say. This is too touchy a subject for us to continue.
Fucking hell. Why do they have such big dicks as well like that? Do you know what I mean?
No, who cares? There's a human. There's a human behind it. I'm not even finished.
What's the need for that? Why is it that big?
What I care.
It's fucking enormous. And then gorillas. You know, gorillas have got like fucking three
It's the young girl whose job title. What possessed her to do that?
I'd be funny. I'd rather
look.
Like, what would you rather? Wank off a horse or a rattlesnake?
Rattlesnake.
Some fucking dangerous animal. You got to wank it off.
The danger.
Don't get annoyed.
Right. Even if it's the kindest horse in the world and it's a very loving creature.
They bite, bruv. They bite. Oh.
It's not a job I see what they're doing. Put it that way. So this young lady, because look at her. She looks young. She's got her hair. Look, she's got her hair all done, you know, and she turns up to work and she's ready. She's ready to. I mean, if she can do that to a horse, can you imagine? I'll leave it there. Can you imagine what she's capable of if that's her profession?
She know how to get you going. There's an easier way, apparently, to get men going. You stick your finger up the bum, didn't you? And then there's like a spot up there that just makes you like, blah, and then you're done.
Well, I think with these animals, they'd have to use their forearm for that sort of thing. Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm not dropping this stream any lower than it's already gone.
Well, imagine you fucking the amount they produce and all. Ain't gonna be a little bit, is it?
Well, if I start a company, I want her as a personal secretary.
Yeah, look, got the good stuff here.
The thing is,
stallion, thoroughbred.
You wouldn't want anything to do with her because you couldn't impress her, could you? If that's what she does at work in the day.
What's this? Yeah,
she's not gonna.
Fucking hell, mate. I can close my hand.
Yeah. That's not a woman you want to take home, and not just that, but who knows what else they do after hours.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, job title there, ladies and gentlemen. There's a semen collector.
Was that a Grupo de Universidad Facultad? What? Facultad de Veterinary. Oh, right. Yeah,
that was a particularly gruesome one. Oh, fucking hell. How is this on YouTube? I'm now scrolling down, right? How is any of this on YouTube?
Well, it's a real job.
Oh, my good God. I don't even want to show this on my stream. Peak semen collection. It's all over the gaff. What?
Yeah, they've done that on that fucking program. There was a program on, wasn't there, called The Farm, where the woman had to do it. What was her name? The one that was fucking David Beckham. What was her name? Lucy something. Was it Lucy something? I don't know. No, Rebecca Luz. There you go. Rebecca Luz. She wanked off a pig on national television.
No, she didn't.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she did. It's a real job. Got to wank the pig off.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Fucking thing going everywhere.
Right, next job, I think. What do you think, Al? Should we move on to the next job? I think.
Yes, this has been interesting.
The next stream's going to be good as well. The next stream, we're going to be talking about the most gruesome execution methods in history, but we've got loads more to go through here. So the next one is completely ludicrous. Let me type it in.
Social worker.
Yes, it's almost as ludicrous as that. But this is a malaria researcher
going around dealing with them Jeremy Kyles all day. Fucking hell.
Basically, a mosquito researcher's job was to let a few hundred mosquitoes attack him a day in an effort to find cures for things. Yeah. which I don't think anyone would really opt in for. I don't know how much you'd need for that sort of role.
Getting bit to pieces on purpose. Do you know how annoying? How annoying a net bite is. Fucking drives me mental. You know, it proper aggs me as well because some little fucking punt has jumped on me in the night and sucked me blood. It's just aggy. Just like, you little cunt, where are you? Where
The
are
next
you?
job, all men respect, in my opinion. I think all men
Porn
that
star.
have that, you'll agree with me here, and that is sea fishing.
Oh, yeah, because it's proper dangerous. Yeah.
Proper Dane. It's terrifying.
Proper
Absolutely.
They lose like 4 people a year on one boat or something like that. Something stupid. I'm probably exaggerating that, to be fair. I bet it has been known, but I don't think that's the average. The average is probably 1 a year. Deadliest catch, yeah, man. For real. People died during this fucking filming. You know, he's gone, and that's it. There's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing.
Once they go overboard, that is it, mate. That's it. He's gone. We've got like a few seconds to chuck a fucking donut to him. And that's it, mate. That's it.
In the films, they make out that they can save you, but it's impossible.
Why don't they just chuck a harness on them? I don't get it.
It's true.
Like, why ain't they got like a vest on them that they can pull and then that inflates when they're in the water?
There must be a practical reason.
Maybe it's that cold. You go in there and you're dead anyway.
No.
Yeah. I mean, why don't you just wear a wetsuit while you're doing the job? Isn't it? So that you know, you're in there and it holds that bit of heat in there. I don't know. No, I'm just thinking things. It's probably, there's no way they ain't thought of this already, but there must be reasons.
Forestry work is statistically more dangerous. Well, I'll take your word for it, Ludwig. Okay, I am not doubting you at all, but the sea is a terrifying thing.
Apparently, Formula One driver is one of the most dangerous jobs as well. Formula One driver, they get like per however many people do it, they get the most deaths.
What about
That's
MotoGP?
I think Formula One's still more dangerous. I don't know. MotoGP is pretty dangerous. I watched a guy die live. He come off the bike, and then another geezer rode straight into him. He was a nutty. I think he was Brazilian or something. They called him Sideshow Bob because he had like this big afro.
Yeah,
I remember watching him.
Absolutely mental. But sea fishing is crazy, absolutely crazy, and not just sea fishing. Those guys that, you know, the long distance oil containers, just both carrying multiple loads on containers. They have long hauls that are bloody dangerous, and they live their lives mainly at sea. And some people, you know, don't realise how lucky they are to go home after work.
Lorry driving, mate. Lorry driving as well, bro.
Yes and no, because the sea is different, isn't it, Lou? Once you go out there, there's no one there to save you, and death is everywhere to be seen.
About a cleaner. Just got to go around cleaning toilets and shit.
That's a minor. That's not one of the worst jobs in history. Let's go to play the collectors of the bodies from the bubonic plague.
Yeah, true. I mean, in history, yeah, that's a pretty shit job. And all they had was them silly beak things, didn't they? Because they thought it was the smell. So they'd put like garlic and thyme and all these, you know, so they'd be smelling Subway the whole time they were fucking working. You know, that Italian herb bread, that's all they'd smell. And then all you'd get is, you'd still get the fucking disease anyway because it weren't the smell. That's how backwards they was back then.
We gotta balance the humors, sir.
The fucking
That's
smell,
the
mate.
solution to all of the problems. You balance the humors, and your
Yeah.
piss creates bubbles, therefore you're healthy.
So on top of having to collect these bodies and then have to put up with the plague, the body collectors were widely hated, and I can understand that. You would.
What a fucking disease that was and all. Big boils under your armpits and shit. Like, fucking hell.
That's a pandemic. That's a
brutal.
pandemic.
Yeah, that's a real pandemic, yeah. What a brutal illness that is. Jesus. And they were still worried about it to this day. There's a place over in South London, I think it's Southwark, somewhere like that. And they were digging up bodies because it was a mass grave site. So there was all these fucking bones piled on top of each other. It was like a mass grave. And they all had to wear like protective gear and fumigate the whole thing just in case they unleashed the poisons.
What? Now? Even now?
Even now, bruv, yeah. I think it's called the Red Cross. You can look it up. The Red Cross or the rest. Yeah, I'm sure it's the Red Cross. And there's still like digging out the bones and shit out of this place.
It's ridiculous that they're doing that. There's nothing in the soil that's going to.
It'll live. It will live. Yeah, it will live in there, waiting to be unleashed again. Miners in general. What a fucking shit job that was.
Oh, that was the pits. Throughout
Miners,
the centuries as well.
They'd even have kids in there. You know that. They'd have kids in there working 12-hour days, kids. And you know what the kids' jobs was? To open
candles and shit.
Well, no, to open hatches to let air out. And then when the wagons was coming round again, you know the mine train things, they have to shut the hatch down again. And there's a lot of kids got killed. Loads of them. So they'd have to open it up to let air in for these, to let air into the mines, oxygen, fresh oxygen, and then shut the hatches down as the wagons come around. If they mistimed it, they was dead. And
a lot of kids died in the mines.
Loads of kids in the Welsh mines, mate. That's only in Wales. In the 1800s, that was fucking a brutal job. It was 12-hour days, so they'd go along with their dads. And hopefully by the end of the day, you'd see your dad or you'd see your child. Didn't even know. Like, your kid got killed 6 hours ago, mate.
The thing about the coal mines is throughout the centuries, they stayed pretty similar. Whether you was 1,000 years ago or a few hundred years ago, technology didn't change that much. You were still in a hole, suffering, without light.
In the old black country as well. In the old black countries, houses were sinking. Like, they just fall into the fucking ground one day because of old mines and stuff. They built these houses on top of them. Didn't think nothing of it. Then all of a sudden, you'd just be like, what's going on? And your whole house would just fall through the fucking ground because the mine collapsed. Fucked up. There's like these, you can Google them and you'll see this house that's like in the ground. So there's only the top window showing. And they're still there to this day. So some of them would have like great big pegs in the ground and then build the house on top of them just in case. So there was a job invented so that someone would dig through the ground with this great big drill bit to see if this ground was okay to build on. It has to be a certain depth. Then you'd hit this spot and no, this can't build here. Because there's a fucking mine underneath it, mine shaft. Like churches all falling in the ground and that. Lots of earthquakes and stuff. Whole place was just fucking mined to fuck. And same in Cornwall as well. There's like a load of places around there you can't build houses and stuff because of old mines.
This bit of the article here is saying that
stilts, that was what it was. Not pegs, stilts, like great big stilts for houses. Sorry, go on.
I was just saying this bit of the article here is saying that
there you go.
it was fleas, A lot of people
fleas.
think it was the rats, but fleas.
Look at that horse. Look at that horse. Ah. Famine. That's demonstrating famine, isn't it?
Even the artists, whenever they ever the plague, because of the horrific nature around it, all the art is horrific. They can't. It won't just be a picture of people picking up bodies. It's like this. It's dramatized. It's trying to show that this era was hell. You know.
Mm.
That would have been an awful job because you're turning up town to town, and you're only there to pick up dead people, and these dead people have got the thing that's killing everyone, and then the people in the town don't like you as it is. And you've got a horse and wagon to do all this as well. It'd be a nightmare.
I wouldn't much like body collecting.
Okay.
I mean, imagine having to talk to the loved ones of this person, you know, like I'm here to collect his body, and they're like distraught and not knowing what they're going to do, because it'd normally be the husband or maybe a child. Fuck that. Imagine picking up a kid's body. Like,
I've not been looking at the comments, but I've just seen one that's interesting. Yes, Street. Yes, Kermit. Sent to Australia, 7 years hard labour. He stole some carrots. Jesus Christ.
fucking thieving little cunt.
He won't be doing that again now, will he? Hey?
Want your carrot cake, then? You want your carrot cake?
All
Little
right.
shit.
None of that.
Nicking carrots. Fucking. Oh, federal offence.
Now, ancient miners had it pretty bad. But let's go up to a silly
fucking imagine that. You know, didn't even know about the canary then. Think of the dangers in the mines anyway. Like, not only mine collapsing would be a bad way to go, wouldn't it? Getting trapped in a mine and just dying of either starvation first or fucking, you know, suffocation. But gas, you know, you'd be digging and then you wouldn't even smell it. They add the smell to gas. You know, your gas cookers and shit like that. I'm sure everyone knows this. They add the smell because there is no smell to gas. So you wouldn't even know. So if you didn't know about the canary, taking the canary down there with you, I mean, fucking hell. What a way to go. You're just like, dead.
Right. Can you hear me? I muted myself.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah.
I'm going to taking a brief break, going for tea. I'll be back shortly, gents. Be right back.
Sweet.
I'm going to skip off a website. This isn't my write-up, by the way. Apart from being a name that's totally effing mental and that has been used for comic characters, books and movies, the whole process of sin eating is rather disturbing. Traditionally performed in 19th century Europe, the sin eater was an outcast, poor and shunned by everyone for their profession, who only sought out once a
You carved there, Vin.
These people were only sought out when someone had died, basically, a sin eater. It was a sin eater's job to absorb all the sins of a dead person in order to let them into heaven. Oh, that's bloody depressing, isn't it? Exchanging their own eternal torment for a ludicrously small sum of money. So hang on, this is a pretty good job, isn't it? You turn up, let some bad spirits into you. I'd do that all day long. You know, I'm not a believing theist. That's not a bad job in my opinion.
Here's in them days.
Oh no, God! You know what? God's going to judge you for taking other people's sins. Surely that's a selfless act anyway.
He will. He will. Right. He'd sit there, you know. So it's you that raped that kid then, was it? You little prick. You're going hell, mate. You ain't coming in here. On your way. Lucifer's waiting. Yeah, but I was.
No, you said it, mate. You said it. You know, you got paid 50 quid for the privilege as well.
Yeah.
So a body snatcher. I think you went over that. Let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
through.
Same thing. Yeah.
Let's go through.
I'm here.
An execution cleaner. Now, because we're going to be talking about executioners in the next stream when we do the world's nastiest executions from China to Europe and so on. But execution cleaners or dungeon cleaners.
Ah, imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not well, are you? You're doing a job like that. You're not well in the head anyway.
No.
You've got to be. Like, you ain't of sound mind, son. You just gone down there, seen a geezer who's been stretched, and yet, cleaning up his tendons and whatnot.
The stereotypical jailer is always like a troll-looking man that's really thick, isn't it?
Yeah.
The stereotypical,
Yes, sire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll clean this up. It'll look lovely. Eat your dinner off it.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Igor-looking fucker. Yeah. Always.
Medieval jailer and death row jailer would be a death row wing, that would be a horrific job. You'd have
even
to
this day, mate. You got to,
Yeah, of course.
Go and take
a
fella, and he's like, it's my day? Is it my day? They're all scared and shit, and then, pissing themselves because it happens. Lose complete control of their bladders just before they're executed.
Well, imagine the atmosphere.
Right, I'm back. What's it called? What's the occupation?
Death row jailers.
Yeah.
He's not fazed by it whatsoever.
Alex could do it. I know he could.
Yeah. On your way, sir.
I would like to add to it the nurse at an asylum that conducts lobotomies.
Yes.
You would not want to be tending to. We're talking 3-4 centuries prior, right? Not the current mental health institutions, etc., that exist in the world. We're talking 3-4 centuries ago, Bastilles that were used as semi-asylums and shit. That's not a place where you would want to go and be.
Well, it depends on your mentality, doesn't it? I mean, if they
I've heard some horror
now,
stories about French asylums, sir. There's really bad ones about here in the UK because they were really efficient at going through people. But apparently France, the standards were really, really much lower. We say that the asylums in the UK had ridiculously low standards. They were demonstrably and observably worse historically. The ones in France, apparently, from what I've researched.
I know a little story about. There was a place over here just before like Broadmoor or anything like that. It's shut down now, but it was one of the worst mental asylums in history. And one of the things they would do to people, right, to mad bastards, was say you'd have like a wall. You're like, look at your wall, right? In that wall there'd be a hole, and then through that hole they'd feed a chain that would go around the neck of someone, like a mental patient, and then every time they'd start misbehaving, this chain around the neck would never come off. By the way, it'd be locked in like a handcuff, but for your like throat.
Right.
And then on the other side of that wall would be 3 geezers. All right, when you started misbehaving, they'd go in there and they'd pull you and smash you into the wall until you were unconscious.
I bet it did cease the issue.
I mean, for fuck's sake, who thought of that?
Well, it's probably more efficient than Ritalin.
Who thought of that? So I remember it was some like a famous politician or a famous a journalist. It might have been a journalist actually went there and described this. and said this is the most like inhumane thing they'd ever seen.
The people working there as well, they're
This guy.
letting him see this. I know the story because they don't know what's wrong. They're so used to abusing these people.
This guy is so sore because he's been on this chain for 5 years. 5 years, never taken off.
Man in the iron mask.
This is never taken off. And every time he'd miss, like, you know, start going do lally, they'd just go in that room and pull him into the wall, smash him into the wall until he was unconscious. And he had all sores, you know, built up.
Well, a really interesting subject, Lou, something I do intend to do something on in the future is the closure of the mental hospitals across Britain. I mean, there was about 30-odd buildings owned by one group alone. They owned huge Victorian, spooky buildings, suspiciously chosen and built buildings, which looked horrific and scary, you know? Mental hospitals, you and I, growing up in London, you know when you see one. There's one in Wanstead, one in Leighton. You know when you see the architecture of a mental home. You could be driving around the country.
You can fucking hear the cunts as you walk past.
But
you know,
they've all been converted, and in the 70s they were got rid of. And nowadays, this is why you see mental cases put as leaders of Antifa as opposed to being looked at. There used to be countless mental homes for all of the things that are today being pushed on society. But we'll leave that there. But the East End, for instance, in the closure years ago, saw many of these people homed, and that's why you saw.
Oh, you cut off there, Vin.
Huge insurgence of people picking up dog end because previously they had lived in some of the Whitechapel and what have you mental institutes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they were members of society. Because everyone knows about the East End, you know, it's not so bad now, but even when me and Lou were kids, there would have been dossers everywhere. Dossers.
Everywhere, bro. Still is.
Everywhere. And yeah, there still is, but there used to be basically white dossers everywhere. It's a bit more mixed now. White lightning people, basically, you know, on the benches. And that
Kenny
Kestrel,
bro. Kenny Kestrel.
That culture, like sort of Las Vegas homeless culture, stemmed from the closure of the mental institutes that were based around sites like Leighton and Whitechapel and so on. And it really depraved the areas. And that's actually something that's really, it's a huge important factor that no one really talks about. And then they just put these people to work. And they're very easily manipulated, people with mental health issues. So I think that goes without saying. But
yeah, there was a bird back in the day who got herself put into
also the mental health institutes, whether you was.
Oh, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Did we?
Yeah, I was just saying that these places are everywhere, and most of the time, if you was in France or America, they would deliberately build their hospitals offshore because they knew there was going to be naughty. So a lot of the American mental health were actually built offshore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you can.
That's where that bird got herself locked up on purpose. She went undercover just to expose them, and she got a lot of these mental institutions shut down or revamped and stuff like that. Some journalists, she deliberately pretended to be mad, got herself locked up in there, and then described the fucking what had actually happened in there and how bad it was and stuff like that. Very brave woman, actually. Fucking imagine that, getting yourself locked up in a mental asylum in the 1800s on purpose.
Well, Lou, if you've got the money nowadays, in Italy, some are depraved and downtrodden. You can't do them up; it costed too much. But there's an island in Italy, for instance, which has a whole facility that they're trying to sell to people to renovate as a huge mansion island. So the mental home you would buy and renovate into a home for you and your yacht. There's quite a few islands like this that are old mental institutes that are for sale if you've got the money across Europe, etc. If you want to move into that sort of place, they probably send in the demo boys first.
Why not? Hey, why not?
Okay, so a medieval barber. Now, a medieval barber had a bastard of a job because there weren't many doctors and people couldn't afford healthcare or couldn't trust anyone when it comes to healthcare. There wasn't an NHS or anything like
All
that.
of the fleas and lice, sir, unless you were a wealthy person's barber. Indeed, this is correct. I fully endorse this as an assertion of very bad jobs to have throughout history. The amount of lice and flea and tick and whatever the fuck that you would get done with is out of the world. Also, higher risk of disease because you would have to shave off the head of all of the peasant workers who were all mangled with fleas and whatnot. Anyone who had hair during as a laborer would get fleas during prior centuries. So yes, barber, correct.
He's so right. He's just talking about the hair factor. Never mind the fact that they had to act as surgeons and doctors, but the hair alone, cutting it back then, people washed very rarely.
Oh, yeah.
Can you imagine?
The psoriasis, the
Yeah.
cornflakes coming
Yeah.
off their head from the dandruff and what? Oh, fucking hell, mate.
It
Nah.
wouldn't be a barber's job. It would be something else. You'd feel like you was a doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wouldn't feel. It would feel medical, not like a. Today's barbers enjoy it. They put the radio on. You know, they all turn up with their fresh trainers. Back then, it was the pits. You're dealing with someone who's not washed in a month.
Yeah.
He's got nits and God knows else what. And then he says, "Oh, by the way, I got a problem with my teeth." So all of a sudden, you've got to play the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also these people weren't really trained as doctors. So they come along, you go, right, I'm going to set up as a hairdresser. Okay, are you good with bodies? I don't know. I'll find out. You know.
We're right with you, Sweeney Todd. I had a few quid.
Yeah, I wonder if there was any more cases like that, because that's just a great story, isn't it? That
It's
they
a
made.
story, yeah. But
Yeah.
I reckon it was true. I reckon there was a barber doing something like that. It had to come from somewhere. Fuck. You know, who was the real Sweeney Todd? I bet you could Google that now and like there'd be some video done on it. This was the real Sweeney Todd. This was a guy that was murdering people in his barbershop, blah blah blah. Stuff like that. Thing was as well.
Well, now you say that, Lou. Before we'll stay in London, but as a job, what about a bounty hunter in the States during the 18th century?
Great job.
Or the 19th.
Yeah, great job.
You say that, but it's not like today where you've got holiday inns and a car. Whilst you're working, you live the pits. You know, it's not nice. The whole process is.
Fucking love it. Yeah, I'd love that. Like, I genuinely love that job. If they told me now you can go back then and do that job, I'd take it for sure.
Would you have a never-ending, suspiciously full Scotch hip flask that somehow, no matter how much you drank from it, it still had whiskey?
I've got one right here. I'll show you it.
You would.
Right? You'll love it. It's very me. It's very me. I mean, I've got. Let's go through these. So let's imagine, right? I'm an, 18. I probably prefer the 1870s because the firearms was coming on a bit better. So let's go. I'm an 1880s bounty hunter, and I've got my little thing. So we got a little one, a little cutie. Look, he's lovely, isn't he? All right. Then go sort of one size up. There's a little one with some engravings on it. Here we go. That sort of size, a little bit bigger. So what are you getting in that? So that's 3 ounces. That one was like 2.5. That one was like 1 ounce. Then we go. What's this size? 5 ounces. That'd do you. 5 ounces would probably do you somewhere in that region.
You know what, Lou? Right, before I ask you what type of character you'd be, because I will, hang on.
Bling bling.
Alex.
What's that? 6 ounces.
Yes,
Actually looks like a character, doesn't he?
That's what I'd have.
Alex in his black jacket looks like a character in a saloon who would be paying you.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, it'd be him. He'd be the judge. He'd be the judge ordering the
with
fucking
his
warrant.
moustache, twizzling it, saying he's got a job for you.
That cunt's bigger than my head. 57 ounce.
Wait, is that a booze
That on
vessel?
my hip. Try and get that in my pocket.
Jesus
Oi,
Christ,
sir,
is that a zip bar?
is that a booze vessel?
Yeah.
Jesus
That's a-
Christ, that's ridiculous.
That's a pretty good booze vessel, sir.
Try
That'll
to
come in
novelty.
handy.
What can that fit? 2 bottles of scotch or something? That's ridiculous.
That's 57 ounces.
Listen, if
So-
we ever get lost in the wilderness and need to perform an immediate amputation utilizing alcohol, we will be in good readiness for all
Standard-
such occasions.
Standard
Crikey.
size versus.
Crikey, matey, that's a good purchase. I fully endorse this. This is useful. And the utilitarian spirit is with you. Imagine how much strong booze you can get in that.
Yeah,
Enough to get an entire group of an entire posse pissed, basically. But what would you keep?
Smashed.
Oh, that would be tasty. True hot warmer as well. I am not usually someone who indulges in strong booze, but I do like it.
You like this game, mate?
Lou.
61%. That is this one. 61%.
Crikey. You want to be sipping that one in
Yeah.
tiny amounts.
You've got to scrape the words off the front so that during videos you can just hand that to people casually. You can just hand that as if you're carrying it about.
Yeah.
Scrape the Say, do you want a drink? Yeah, go on. So I can sit here.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I've got an hip flask here.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Just casually, just pass it about. Yeah.
That's my weight for that. Trying to carry that. Out in camping. You know what I mean? You'd need a wagon, wouldn't you? You'd need a wagon. But yeah, I'd love to have been a bounty hunter back then, for real. Like, obviously, this is all in jest, and you're sort of saying this, and I mean, it's a very difficult fucking job. But there was very successful people at it that were really good, prolific bounty hunters. I mean, even True Grit. If you ever seen that film, that's what he is. But there was a real Rooster Cogburn. Not his name weren't Rooster Cogburn, it was Rooster something else. And he was a really successful bounty hunter.
Would you
It's a good
have a poncho or a sick jacket?
a sick jacket.
Sick jacket, yeah.
I'd have you know, a leather thick sort of jacket, I guess. Or if not, then like a shotgun coat. I mean that's the way it's got to be, isn't it?
That's what I was going to say. I would basically the Clint look. Yeah.
Some
Because
sort
he's
of
a
shotgun
poncho.
coat.
He has a poncho, but also the jacket, you know, or like the cowhide jacket.
Something like you got to, because it's all terrain. You know what I mean? You can't be unprepared. And trust me, I went out camping. When was the last time? I went camping Wednesday night, just gone, and I took the wrong fucking sleeping bag. So I took my new hammock and my nice bit of foam for the bottom of it to sort of take the chill off, and add a tarp over me. And sitting there, got me fire going, you know, had a little bit to eat, had a little drop of rum in me normal sized hip flask, sat there loving it. I was like, oh, this is bliss. So getting on, right, got work next day. Let's get me nut down. Pulled me fucking sleeping bag out. I got me summer one there. And mate, I suffered all night. I just could not get comfortable. Just couldn't get comfortable. I was tired all day and work the next day because you just wake up where you're so cold. I was like, mate, this just weren't. That's not going through your bag and having a look properly first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're unprepared, mate, fucking is it brutal? Wasn't nice.
You're better off with a heavy sleeping bag than a light one, because at least you can open a heavy sleeping bag. A light one, you know, you're stuck with what you're stuck with.
I know. That's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get myself a proper goose feather sleeping bag, you know, built for like -5 minimum. Because you're not going to get more than -5 over in this country unless you're up in Scotland somewhere. But a -5 rated sleeping bag was what I should have had. Fucking mate, did I pay for it? I had to get in fully clothed, you know, so it weren't comfortable by no means. If I'd have had a tent, I might have been all right. Might have been a bit better because the tent sort of keeps in a bit of the heat. But I still would have been pretty cold. But out in a fucking hammock, man. Oh,
Alex, would you have been a good bounty hunter?
I would be the one who is designing the hooks and tools and proceeding with the interrogations thereafter, sir. I would not be the one conducting the front line, but the back line
He'd be the mayor
operation.
with the watch.
I would be
on
the
his
guy
chest.
hiring the bounty hunters, sir, and collaborating with them most likely, giving them their orders, and likely sharpening their tools if ever need be the case.
Right, well, enough of that crazy ass talk. The next job is wool fuller. Okay, so I'm reading someone else's description, not mine. After you have made a garment out of wool, after you've carded and spun and weaved, you're still not done, because now it has to be fulled. It needs to be sourced, clean, and then thickened. But the first step is rather vile. See, in order to bleach and clean the cloth, you need ammonium. And how common do you think that was in ancient Europe? In fact, there was only one good source: urine. It was so in demand that the Romans taxed the stuff. As a fuller, you had to stamp on cloth in a puddle of urine for hours at a time, and often other caustic and dangerous chemicals like lime were used too.
Lime burns your fucking skin. Yeah, lime's like acid.
The thing is, how dangerous is this physically? Because it's not hard labour, is it? Treading piss. It's unpleasant. It's not like the sewage work.
Depends on how long you're doing it, I guess. If it's a long-term occupation, it's pretty grim.
It's pretty bad. I mean, it's worse than, I don't know, when Lou was saying selling popcorn at the cinema. It's definitely worse than that.
Nah, it's not. I'd rather do the piss thing. Can't be doing that, man. Just dealing with them cunts all day. It's so debilitating, you know. Popcorn, yeah. No, come on, bro. Don't be tight. Top it up more than that. You're just like, you fucking piece of shit. You ain't even gonna eat all this, and then you're gonna throw it all over the fucking floor. You know, I'm gonna come in there. There's gonna be your bag of popcorn just spat out all over this fucking cinema, and I'm gonna have to clean it. You know, trying to get in all like between the seats and that. Oh, fucking wankers.
Well, the next one is, because we went through the plague, the people picking up the bodies when they're relatively fresh. But what about if you're the plague barrier at the point where they've all been amassed and now you've got to put them all in a grave, and now you've got rotting corpses that have amounted that are anyway, because the plague would have caused the bodies to stink, and these people were in a time when washing wasn't common anyway. So if you can imagine modern death pits smelling bad, I can't imagine what a
yeah, true,
bubonic or black death plague pit would have been like. Of the plague pit, that would have been a horrific job. Horrific.
How about a vomit collector?
These people aren't being collected by ambulances. They're horse and carriages. They're being dragged, you know, to these locations, rotting over days. And then you've got to do it in open air, you know?
Oh.
Charming.
Nice. All right, how about a vomit collector, Vin?
Is this a real thing? What do you mean?
I'm reading it now. It's a myth that the ancient Romans had a dedicated rooms for regurgitating food, but it was common practice to vomit in order to consume more at the feast. Many individuals would throw up in special receptacles or simply on the floor to avoid interrupting the...
Oh, don't say that in front of Alex. He'll start doing that.
Of course, this required the service of a vomit collector who would clean it all up.
What idiot?
So you mean to tell me that the occupation of this has been given unto others by me throughout my life when very drunk? That's what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I am the one who has given people the occupation of vomit collector, technically, sir.
Oh, yeah, no, for real. This is a real thing. There was a vomit collector. And there's Fuller's, Groom with a stool, violin string maker. Fucking hell. But what was that Street's comment? It was, where does the word hungover come from then? I want to know that. I genuinely want to know that. When he when the stream catches up to the people. But here we go. Violin string maker. Prior to the 17th century's revolution in the technology of string making for musical instruments, the industry was decidedly more disgusting. In order to make strings thick enough to play lower notes on a violin, which at the time had only 3 strings, the preferred method involved twisting strands of sheep's innards, so sheep guts, sheep intestines, together. String makers would have to butcher the sheep very carefully so as not to rupture the stomach or the lower intestines. Then spend a painstaking hours trimming away the fatty tissue, blood vessels, and muscle. And then the guts had to be soaked in a solution of wood ash to further clean them and constantly monitored so that they didn't begin to rot.
How did
The
they
innards
even
were then
discover
thoroughly
this?
dried and twisted into band strings.
How do people even come to the conclusion? I know what that goat or that sheep. I bet you, if I dig its guts out, I can make a brilliant violin.
The cat gut. You ever heard of cat gut and all that?
Yeah,
The
I'm aware, but still, at some point, someone had to think: how many other weird things have people tried that didn't work out for them to be able to make bloody violins from guts?
Why is this a bad profession?
Because what I'm saying is, right, it's all very well that we can do it and we know, but how did they come to this conclusion? Was it down to intelligence?
I don't know. What the fuck were they doing?
Yeah.
What was their profession before this? Or where did they go to read employment, whoever the fuck it is back in the day, and say, you know what, I want to try cat I want to make violin strings out of fucking sheep's guts. Oh yeah,
Wait, we've been
there's
bested
job
here.
opening.
Bowstrings.
Yeah, bowstrings, yeah. Gut for bowstrings, yeah.
Yeah.
Where's hungover come from, Street, then? Come. I need to hear this. I need to read this out. Hungover. That's fucking hungover. What? Let's contemplate that. Where would that come from?
People
Hungover.
made money from letting people to rest over a rope to sleep. I'm not sure what you mean there, Street.
Yeah. So when they're pissed up, they'd just stick them over a rope to sleep instead of choking on their own vomit.
Oh, I see.
I guess.
The next one is a French beggar because times were so hard in pre-revolutionary France, some people, and bear in mind, right, when it comes to pre-revolutionary times of any of these governments, many fabrications of the truth are created in order to sympathize with so-called revolutionaries, right? And I'm not going to get into it, but a lot of these people are not revolutionaries anyway.
Yeah.
In pre-revolutionary France, times were that rancid that people would self-mutilate themselves in order to be able to be a beggar. So if there was nothing wrong with you, people wouldn't give you money. So you'd have to cut your own eye out or gouge off an arm in order for you to qualify as a beggar. Otherwise, you just died. So
how about the old fucking... because there's a lot of stuff we get from France, in it, like this sort of words and wordings and stuff like that and whatever else. How about the old saboteur? Who knows where that word comes from?
Go on.
I bet Alex does. He's got a little...
He doesn't know anything.
Saboteur, sir.
Yes, saboteur. Where's that word come from without looking it up?
I think it's French.
Yes.
It is, but you can tell it is by the
it's got a
pronunciation.
French ring to it.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, I'll tell you where. The French people used to make a shoe called the sabot. Okay. And when they were sort of protesting against, the industrial people, whatever else and stuff like that, they'd deliberately chuck shoes into the machines to fuck them. And that's where that comes from, a saboteur, because they'd throw one of these sabos into the fucking machine, fuck it, and then they wouldn't have to work and stuff like that. That's where saboteur.
You know what? How you explained it is exactly how I want it written in the Oxford Dictionary.
Mm.
That's exactly how I want it. Bang on, word
They
for
would
word.
fuck the fucking machines. That's what.
Fuck
Sorry.
the machines. They threw the shoes in.
Yeah, a saboteur. There you go.
Brilliant.
So then you got the word sabotage and all stuff like that. So all from that.
Okay, I've just come across something else that I put in the stream link. Now, you know I said semen collector. I've come across the same job. At least they're more honest. It's animal masturbator. So at least they are being more honest.
Animal masturbation. What an occupation.
I'm going to bring up a website.
Animal masturbation. No thanks.
I'm going to bring up a website, and this website is going to bring us through some of the grueling jobs that we're yet to cover.
Where the word bullseye comes from as well.
I've got one that you can go through in the intermediary, gentlemen.
I just sunk into what you said.
Oh.
Right, a tosher. Okay, so a sewer hunter. Okay, this is a sewer hunter, Lou. So imagine we saw a guy. At least he had some decent gear on, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
So this guy's got a candle. Now, I don't know how you keep that candle lit. It doesn't look like it's in a lantern. So
how did it blow up? All the fucking gas down there.
The moisture in the air, Lou, is solid excrement and piss, like wall to wall. Any moisture you feel in that room is not water.
Oh.
Right. So that's a job, isn't it? People are crying about COVID. I wonder how much this guy got. And there we go, about the matchstick makers.
By the way, sir, don't just scroll past it. That sounds interesting. You should read through it.
I'm going to read it. I was just scrolling down because I saw the matchstick makers.
So here we go. By the way, sir, after this, I've got one which is called The Satire of the Trades, which goes into the rundown of the jobs in ancient Egypt. It's a 5-minute rundown text, but go with this one first.
I thought you'd have come out with something like the rent boy to the pharaoh or something.
No, that would be fairly comfortable, truth be told. But,
are you joking?
No, there's other professions.
Listen to him. Listen to him.
Oi, sir, listen, there's way worse professions to be had in ancient Egypt.
All right, anyway, I'm reading this article, you absolute scumbag. Victorian London had a huge network of overworked sewers under the city, washing away the effluence of the crowded metropolis. Toshers made their living down in the dark sewers, sifting through raw sewage to find any valuables. So in case you had digested any diamonds, this guy was here to pick them up. It was extremely dangerous work, apparently. Nauseous fumes formed deadly pockets. I can imagine the actual, because you know, like how a septic, you know, like a pond, if it's not cleaned after a certain amount of time by the council, it almost bubbles and it stinks. Imagine what Victorian or Edwardian sewage would have been like.
Yeah, mate. Not on, mate.
Right. No flow. It's probably not travelling at a decent speed. Well, maybe it was. I'm not well studied on the metropolitan sewage system. It's an interesting topic, though. It was extremely dangerous. Blah 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 blah. There were swarms of rats because you know in the sewers, rats live in abundance.
Indeed,
they do live in.
They can survive and thrive actually among all the shit and stuff because it's their natural habitat and environment, and they get nutrition from eating it. So there's lots of food around them. Like.
Oh, and then what they do is, I've seen one documentary on it. They have to bury into these holes, and they have to get out in time sometimes before the level of flow, shall we say, goes above their little homes and drowns them. So sometimes there's families of rats that at 2 o'clock every day they've got to get out and bugger off for a few hours because their home's going to get flooded by shit and piss. So this guy's job. I mean, how long would you do this job before? Yeah. What if you don't find anything for 6 weeks? What are you possibly going to find?
Mainly knives and stuff like that. People are getting rid of, I guess. Like, you know, people are going to get rid of incriminated evidence, whatnot, and stuff like that. But other than that, fuck. How many people drop their pocket watches down a bog? I don't know. Not a lot.
Dropped treasures. I don't understand. People were living in poverty. What's dropped treasures? Lucrative business, it says. How can maybe they're speaking as if they were there.
Coins, stuff like that, where they're falling out their trousers. I guess it's about it, isn't it?
In a time when money was even more.
That's got to be where the word tosser comes from. He's a fucking tosser. It would have been a tosher. You know.
Well,
taking around his shit.
More inclined to the what was he called, professional masturbator or something, or animal masturbator.
Yeah, because if you're thinking it's coming from tossing someone off, but I mean, it may have derived from that. Who knows? Maybe. What about a bone grubbler?
A what?
A bone grubbler.
Is that someone going for the minerals in?
Victorian cities had a vast scavenging economy, and the bone grubbler fell somewhere in the middle of it. These workers would scavenge rotting bones from butchers' garbage piles, right? So butchers' garbage piles, and the stockyards and sell them to dealers. Some of the bones would eventually be made into toothbrush handles, children's teething rings, and other personal items. What couldn't be sold were boiled down for soap making, and the remainder were ground into fertilizer. So your job is literally to go through fucking nick a load of bones, start making some toothbrushes out of them, and if that didn't work, children's teething toys. Oh, fucking hell. Imagine that, chewing the bone. He's chewing the bone, and then if that didn't work out, you just boil them down, make some soap, and then the remainder were ground into fertilizer. I mean, you couldn't have been a vegan back then.
Oh no, don't stand a chance.
You didn't have a choice in the matter, by the way.
Yeah.
You didn't have a choice. You would have to be a quote vegetarian, not vegan. Vegan is off their nuts. But vegetarian plus dairy products is how you would survive if you weren't able to get a hold of meat. You would want to make very good friends with the butcher if you want to survive and prosper.
Well,
right, gentlemen, shall we move on to the next one?
The next job isn't that. I mean, it is in the past, but a mudlark. At least it's not sewage. They would be on the banks of the Thames and places like that when the tide was out, looking for goodies. So
it's still do that now. Yeah, still do that now.
It would be horrific though in times when the Thames was just pure AIDS.
The great smell, the great stench of London. Yeah, during that time, fucking hell, that would have been pretty brutal. I'll tell you what. There's another one, which in Tony Robinson's opinion was the worst job. If you want to know, it was a tanner.
Tanner.
Leather tanning.
You got it. You got it. So perhaps the most disgusting job of all time, in Robinson's view. Tanners performed the essential work of preserving hides from cattle, pigs, and other animals in use of manufactured goods. The processing of preparing the hide was tedious and foul-smelling, invoking soaking the hides in giant pits of lime to soften the hair and tissues of all the hair. All of the hair and fat would then be scraped off by hand a slippery and odorous process. The cleaned hide was then re-immersed in a pit of water and dog feces to further clean and soften it. Of course, these pits were kept fermenting between batches of hides, so the Victorian tannery was one of the most revolting, wrench-smelling places in history. And there were thousands of them as well. It absolutely stunk to high heaven of piss and rotting flesh, fats and whatnot, you know. And that's where they get the saying, he hasn't got a pot to piss in, come from, because people would sell their piss to tanners and stuff like that to use as this, you know, dog piss was far stronger and far better, but piss, they'd have to sell a pot, you know. He ain't even got a pot to piss in. They have to sell their pot of piss, you know, just to make a penny.
And the piss wasn't exactly clean anyway. It's not like they had the best drinking water back then. Much of it would have been alcohol.
Yeah, it's safer to drink gin. Yeah.
Mm. Well, the next job is the one in front of you, which is the chimney sweep. And I think we're all familiar with that from the films. Yeah. But it really seems tame, doesn't it, in comparison with the chap going through raw sewage? But it's not. It's tame in comparison with a coal miner, but is it tame if you get stuck in a chimney?
Dangerous. Dangerous, really. Yeah. Loads of kids got stuck up there, and they were just left. They were just left up there. Fuck them, leave it. And then, like months later, a new family had moved into the home, want the chimney swept, and there's a fucking kid stuck up there. Horrible, horrible fucking job. Horrible way to go. That's the saddest thing.
I mean, we don't know if this is true, but this article says that children as young as 4 years old were used.
Yep, guarantee it.
I don't disbelieve it, but we don't know it either.
I guarantee it, mate. It's too much, too many historical things. You can get documents from Scotland Yard where they found children stuck up chimneys and stuff like that.
I know children, but 4 is very young.
Probably one case or 2 cases. I mean, that would be the extreme end of it, wouldn't it? Be a young youngster of 4. Or they're just guessing the age. He looks about 4. You know, might have been a small kid. Horrible though, isn't it? You know, think what they did to kids back then. How heartless is that?
Well, it's not. Whether it was the factories or the chimneys, what's more disturbing is that the world allowed children to be put in that scenario. So parents of today would never let their kids near those scenarios. The fact that parents had that nonchalance is what's so disturbing. And sometimes it wasn't even nonchalance or neglect. It really was poverty. So that's how the industries and factories got so many child workers, from an intense need for families to eat. Rat catcher, I don't think that's a nice time to ever.
White privilege, yeah?
White privilege all over. White privilege all over. Yeah, whether we're coal mining at sea, on tall ships during storms, trying to, you know, put the sails out, we've always had it really easy.
Fucking shocking. Okay.
Resurrectionists, because we're going to come to a close soon. It's been a couple of hours.
That's the one I went through. You already gone through that.
Resurrectionists.
Yeah, well, one I told you where they're digging up the graves. That's what that is. Same thing.
Well, I don't say an exorcist, right? That's not a bad job if you're a nutcase, because
people believed it. People believed it back then. They still do to this day.
Yeah, that's it, because you believe it.
I'd say like
I've got something. I've got something to go through before closing up, gentlemen. I'm going to read something off of a site and we'll discuss it thereafter. These jobs were all held by those at the bottom of the Egyptian social hierarchy and are described in withering detail in a famous literary work from the Middle Kingdom of Egypt, 2040 to 1782 BCE, that's 4,000-ish years ago, as the Satire of the Trades. This piece, also known as the Instructions of Dua Kheti, is a monologue in which a father, bringing his son to school, describes for the boy all of the difficult and nasty jobs which people have to do every day and compares these to the comfortable and rewarding life of the scribe. Although the piece is obviously satirical in its exaggerated depictions, the description of jobs and their difficulty is accurate. Here we go. The father characterizes the life of the carpenter as miserable, and how the field hand on farms cries out forever, while the weaver is wretched. Simpson 434. The arrow maker wears himself out trying to gather raw materials, and the merchant has to leave home with no guarantee of returning and finding his family intact. The washerman launders at the riverbank in the vicinity of the crocodile, and his children want nothing to do with him because he is always covered in other people's filth. The fisherman is, quote, more miserable than any other profession, end quote, because he must count on his good catch in a day to make a living and must also contend with the dangers in the water, which often catch him unawares, as, quote, no one told him that a crocodile was standing there, end quote, and he is swiftly taken, in brackets Simpson 435, end brackets. All of these jobs are described in great detail in order to impress on the boy that he should embrace the life of the scribe, the greatest job one could have, as he tells his son, quote, it is to writings that you must set your mind. See for yourself. It saves one from work. Behold, there is nothing that surpasses writings. I do not see an office to be compared with it, to which this maxim could relate. I shall make you love books more than your mother, and I shall place their excellence before you. It is indeed greater than any office. There is nothing like it on earth. Simpson 432 to 433. The writer of the satire, obviously a scribe himself, may have exaggerated somewhat the effect, but his argument is basically sound. The occupation of scribe was among the most comfortable in ancient Egypt, and certainly compared favorably with most other jobs listed. Let's see. Concerning slaves and lower class jobs, it is also a misconception that slaves in Egypt were routinely beaten and only worked as unskilled laborers. Slaves in ancient Egypt came from many different ethnicities and served their masters in many different capacities according to their skills. Unskilled slaves were used in the mines as domestic help and in other menial capacities, but were not employed in actually building tombs and monuments like the pyramids, which were built by citizens.
Fair enough. I still don't think any of these jobs we've gone through are worse than telemarketers today.
Or popcorn dispensers, as you said. What about, though, the dangerous jobs? Like someone just brought to my attention, which has brought other jobs to me. Steeplejack, high-end roofers. I did a bit of roofing. It's life or death, but it really has a high death rate. Lumberjacks, very dangerous jobs, which are still active today. In the past, they were deadly. But people think lumberjacking is fun. If you get that wrong, you're in all shades of shit.
How about an Indian sewage worker?
Oh, don't. Oh. Can you imagine the stuff they give him? It must be like a COVID mask. They give him a COVID mask saying you get.
Like, there is nothing worse than a shit after a fucking hot Indian, is there? Like, you know, you've gone out all night, you had a dodgy mutton vindaloo, and then you have that shit the next day. Right, these people eat this shit. Like, eat that food all day, every day, and working in the Indian sewers. For fuck's sake. That's the worst smelling place in the world, is an Indian sewer. It has to be. Has to be. And look, I even got a fucking picture of this geezer. Like, look at him. just standing in that shit. No
Nice.
protective gear at all
Nice.
because
Look
they
at that.
can't afford it. Look
Look
at
at that.
it. Look at him.
Nothing. Just him
That's
as if
pretty
he's in a
grim.
paddling pool.
Ah, jeez. Said it depicts an Indian soil worker who's wearing no protective clothing despite being waist deep in the tunnel. And he's just standing there like, yeah, it's all right. No worries.
I wonder what he earns.
1 rupee a day, mate.
What about as far as dangerous jobs, jockeys?
I mean, it's more dangerous for the horse. But, yeah, fucking, it's pretty rough. What about them fucking people that have to taste dog food? That's a real job.
That is, and yeah, it is. Yeah,
There's an actual job. Someone's, tasting a can of Caesar or pedigree chum, whatever. Yeah, tastes like shit. Dog will love it.
I typed in steeplechase, thinking it was someone that obviously does the tops of churches and what have you, and it's not. It's coming up with loads of racehorse footage.
Oh, I've recalled one working at a nuclear facility. That can be pretty bad if shit goes tits up.
Would you, without talking about space, right, as some sort of conspiracy theory, would you be an astronaut?
Yes, get me off this liberal shithole planet, sir. Yesterday.
Yeah, I'd go with that. Why not? Go up into space. You're pretty good, aren't you? I mean, how many times do they get caught up? I mean, if you do have an accident or whatever, you're fucked. But if you don't, it's pretty safe, I suppose, isn't it?
I mean, if you're an engineer astronaut, that would be terrifying.
Well, like test pilot.
No, the kind of guy who has to go outside, the spaceship or whatever and repair shit on the outside if there's a clash with space debris and shit. You would want drones to do that rather than a human, but if you're a human going outside a spaceship in order to repair shit, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, I don't fancy that. TRR cameraman would be a dodgy job. Yeah, that's true.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Chimney maker. Oh, yeah. Chimney maker.
Right, I did a bit of roofing, right, and I've done a lot of labouring in my life. But roofing is terrifying.
Roofing in July, mate. Oh, yeah.
The lads I was with as well were ruthless. They were throwing tiles to me in sets of 4 from ages away. I'm stood up, stories high. It is not a safe occupation whatsoever.
Bare knuckle fighter.
Yes.
Bare knuckle
But what about? But listen, without saying the B word, I think it has to go without saying that explosion, deactivation specialists are relatively brave.
Yeah. Them firemen in general. I mean,
firemen will be the first to admit to you they never do anything.
I don't know. Really?
Yeah.
They do. I mean, it's
you
not.
Don't get many fires these days. A lot of the time they're cutting people out of cars.
Yeah, I suppose so. It's a lot safer now. But an 1800s fireman, or maybe Great Fire of London fireman. There's a famous quote from the fucking mayor of London back then. Was a woman could sit down and piss it out. Get on with it. The whole fucking city was on fire. He's saying a woman could piss it out.
Landmine remover. That would be a good one. This one. Yeah, right. I don't want to miss this one. Before we go on to crocodiles, is it psychologist? I can't remember what it is. We'll get to it. A venom milker. Now, your job is to, with your bare hands, antagonize a venomous snake into providing you with the venom so that you can create anti-venoms.
Anti-venoms, yeah.
That's a bastard of a job.
Try it with a fucking venomous spider.
You couldn't
Even
go
worse.
in sort of having a bad morning and not be paying attention.
Happens, though. It happens. Hazardous job, that one, mate. Ho, 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 ho. You don't want to get on the wrong side of a fucking taipan or... Oh, fuck that.
Well, I've got a couple more left. One of them will be a medieval monarch because it was life or death. To be a king, if you lost your battles, you lost your life. It wasn't an election sort of thing. And I'd say chariot races and gladiators. That's going to be my final awful job against their will. People forced to fight to the death or fed to lions. It's not much of a job, is it?
Not really. Not really. I mean, you're just basically a slave that's there to not work but to fight. That's not don't know. It's not a glamorous job, I suppose.
Well, same as a serf. A serf was technically a slave. It was just someone that would be sold in a block with land, and your job was to serve just property. Exact same thing. Alex, do you have any closing points before we bugger off? Because I am starving.
Yeah, I'm starving. I'll make my
No, sir, I'm all good. I think we've gone through quite a long list of gruesome activities and duties to tend to, but one that we did not explore a great deal is either an explorer to Cannibal Islands or an explorer to the Antarctic.
Explorer to the Cannibal Islands. Jesus Christ. Imagine that.
Fuck that.
Yes, being told that you have to explore these islands and then you get kidnapped and eaten by cannibals, that is not very fun at all, and I do not envy anyone who was a quote-unquote explorer for the kingdom and landed on feral territories and got done. There's a piece of music that we use in our media that has a drum roll at the start. It's called Les Sauvages. Look, I know no one likes the French, but they came out with a half-decent opera for a theatrical play. It's called The Savages, and it refers to what happens when explorers land up on a shore and get eaten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't fancy that. But yeah. All right.
And the next week, boys, you've got plenty of time to plan ahead. Our next subject is going to be, we might not even do it live. We might just record it and then put it out on our telegrams. We'll decide. But it's going to be on the most horrific execution methods in history.
I've got a closing note.
Go on.
There was a talking about the executions and stuff like that. One of the funniest executions I've ever heard of, and it was this Viking king that had been caught in battle. They'd been defeated, and part of the execution process was they'd take you by your ponytail, and someone would have to stand there, hold you like that. You put your head down, bow down, and you'd wait for the old sword to come down, crashing on your neck and cut through your head. You know, hopefully it was a clean cut. If not, you might suffer a little bit. So this geezer said, all right, and go on him, fucking do it. Pulled his fucking head forward. And as the geezer was holding his ponytail, the swordsman took his sword up to come down with a crashing blow, and he pulled his head up like that, and he cut off the other bloke's hands. And he laughed at him. I just remember that one. It made me think of it. Like, what a fucking dude.
If it's true, that's a brilliant story.
It's as far as we know, that's what was written down. Yeah, he did this. He fucking pulled, fucking pulled the geezer's hands forward, smack, off with his hands. And laughed at him. Have that, cunt. I'm going to Valhalla. What a dude. There's your last act. Brilliant.
I kept freezing at the end there. Right, ladies and gents, we are off and we will see you shortly. Take care.
Enjoy yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great weekend. Till next time. Bye.
Ta.